From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. A pretty major shakeup could be on the horizon for Colorado's cannabis-related businesses and their profitability. President Trump in December issued an executive order calling for the reclassification of marijuana, which is currently a Schedule I substance, to a less severe category of Schedule III. Cannabis is currently illegal, according to federal regulators, even if states like Colorado say it's legal to sell and use it. The current Schedule I status also creates major limitations for dispensaries and other cannabis-related businesses. Taxes and fees from those companies are a major chunk of Colorado's economy, generating about $250 million in revenue last year. So a shift in federal law could have big economic impacts on those taxes and fees in states like Colorado. University of Colorado law professor Sloan Speck examined the potential impacts in a recent essay in the publication The Conversation. His article laid out some of the unusual impacts of how tax law and cannabis interact and asked some big questions about what could be next.
So Congress has given a bunch of rules in the Internal Revenue Code, and those rules raise revenue. People pay their taxes every year, but they also shape what people do. Taxes affect people's behavior. And that goes for individuals and it goes for businesses too.
And just before we even get into the cannabis industry, you study tax policy, but you don't work for and have never worked for the cannabis industry?
That's correct.
Now, you write that downgrading marijuana from Schedule I status would lead to pretty much instant tax relief for many Colorado businesses who are not able to write off many business expenses that most businesses can deduct. Talk about those deductions that cannabis companies cannot claim.
So rescheduling is a big deal, and it's been in the works for a long time. It was something that was talked about in the Biden administration. It's now being continued in the Trump administration.
Right.
And rescheduling does not make the drug legal at the federal level. So what's the big change in rescheduling? Well, it's all taxed, and it happens instantly. Under current law, there is a special provision enacted during the war on drugs that penalizes businesses that are trafficking in controlled substances. And that includes marijuana. That rule was produced by Congress back when all states treated marijuana as being illegal, and it hasn't changed since then. So this rule, the effect is that it disallows any tax benefits, any deductible expenses that can be claimed by marijuana businesses.
Okay, so what's an example of something cannabis businesses can't deduct now, but would be able to deduct if marijuana were downgraded from Schedule I?
So a really big one is employee wages and salaries. So these marijuana businesses, they employ people who are at the retail counter. They are selling these products to customers. Those people get paid wages or salaries. Those wages or salaries are just not deductible. And that's a huge piece of what it costs to run one of these businesses.
Do you have a sense of how big an increase in retained revenue we would see if these changes went through?
I would expect that effective tax rates would go from 60 to 80% down to 20 to 40%. So roughly half of the current effective tax rate.
That's significant.
Absolutely. Right now, because marijuana businesses, the cannabis industry, because they cannot take these tax deductions under this older federal law, their effective tax rates are super high. So we think of businesses as paying 20% or 40%, something like that, in that range. These businesses might pay as much as 80% of their profits in tax. And that's a really big slice of what they're earning. It doesn't just reduce profitability, it reduces those businesses' ability to put that money back in once they've earned it. A lot of small businesses, they grow not because they're taking out lots of loans or they're finding new investors. They grow because they make money and they put that money right back into the business. That simply has not been a mechanism of growth in the marijuana industry for the entirety of its legal existence. This has been something that the industry has pushed for more than 15 years, is a headline issue that affects profitability, and it affects the business's ability to grow as well.
Another area where the industry could see huge relief is in banking and financing and investment. You noted that many banks can't offer a loan to a cannabis business because weed is federally illegal. How would rescheduling cannabis open up new kind of opportunities for investment? And how is that different from the way it is now?
They typically will find outside cash investors, and there are some lenders who are able to make loans to these types of businesses. It is hard to find that additional capital, and it's almost impossible to get retained earnings that will allow them to grow.
So a lot of current investors, I would imagine, are either very well connected or they're independently wealthy.
Right. So it would be much more of the private capital market and less of kind of the public capital market or the commercial bank market. Although both of those sectors have started to invest more in the last 5 or 7 years or so, but it's been a very complicated process.
Let's talk about the ramifications that some of these tax changes could have for cannabis businesses. Do you think we would see an explosion in revenue and growth once those taxes are brought down?
I think absolutely. So historically, cannabis industries and states have experienced a period of rapid growth, and then growth has been relatively slow after an initial kind of startup boom. And some of that is due to the limitations on retained earnings under the tax code. By changing that rule, there will be a lot more retained earnings in the cannabis industry and a lot of potential for organic and internal growth in the states where these products are legal. So we don't really know what will happen, but we should think about what we would like to have happen.
I mean, it seems like right now we have many dispensaries in many neighborhoods in Colorado. Do you think decriminalizing marijuana would lead to us seeing even more dispensaries?
So I think the answer to that question is complicated. I mean, I think we probably would see larger and more mainstream dispensaries. So we might see fewer small businesses and more big businesses if there were decriminalization. The tax rules, I think, do favor small businesses. And I do think that ultimately there probably is going to be a squeeze on those as larger businesses enter the market.
That's CU law professor Sloan Speck talking about how downgrading marijuana from a Schedule I substance could change the way cannabis businesses operate. We'll have a link to his recent article on the subject in our show notes and at KUNC.org. By the way, are you subscribed to the In The NoCo newsletter? It's a hand-picked rundown of Colorado headlines delivered straight to your inbox from the KUNC news team. Head to KUNC.org and click on Newsletter. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.